And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 107th episode, recorded on Wednesday, February 14th, 2024. This is our Valentine's to all of our fans. I'm your co-host, what am I doing here? I'm your host, Jeff Marlow, alongside my co-host, Kathy Amos. Today, we will be breaking down your number 14/12 Indiana Hoosiers 68-54 win over the Wisconsin Badgers. That brings their record to 21-3, 12-2 overall in the Big Ten. And as usual, we'll start our show with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And that tonight, Kathy, goes back into the third quarter. 35 seconds to go in the third quarter. Sarah Scalia nailed a three, and that was her 79th three-pointer of the season, setting the all-time single-season record for Indiana women's basketball, breaking the record previously held by Amanda Cahill. And she will just keep adding to that, obviously, as we still have games to play. Kathy, I'm going to ask you for a little help because you were actually looking at some of the numbers a little quicker here. But she would need how many to get to Steve Alford for the all-time IU record?
Yep. So Steve Alford has a season record of 107. So with her 79, I don't think she hit another one after that one, right, Jeff?
Nope, I don't think so.
That was it, right? Okay. Yep. So that'll be 28. So we'll add her to our counter here as we continue through the season of our women breaking records.
So, and as our banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, who includes Assembly Call and Crimson Cast. Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line. You're bound to find something for you or anyone in your life that just loves great collegiate gear. And they've just dropped last Friday some new IU gear stuff. In fact, I saw a picture today, I think it was just today, maybe it was yesterday, on Twitter, of the IU women wearing the t-shirt, kind of the Terry Moore and motto, if you're juiceless, you're useless. And I thought that was a great team photo to have them wearing the shirt. Also, I actually saw a Home Field Apparel commercial on one of my Hulu stations I was watching the other day. I was like, wow. So yeah, they're actually getting some advertising. So not only do you get great quality apparel, but you're supporting Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelly School of Business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23, HOME23, to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. And a couple of quick news items, Kathy. In the last couple of days, Mackenzie Holmes named to the Naismith Player of the Year award mid-season team. I believe it was 30 players on that list. So again, Mac being nationally recognized, and then Chloe Moore McNeil for her efforts last week, and it continued tonight. But Chloe Moore McNeil was named to the Ann Myers Drysdale National Player of the Week award, and there were 5 players selected for that last week. So a couple news items there to pass along. Also, I do want to pass this one along a little bit, and it gets not IU related, but there was a really good article on ESPN. I would encourage all of our listeners, or if you're watching with the Workaholics in the live YouTube feed, really good article today on ESPN.com about TCU and how they've had to go out and find some players in the walk-ons and to help fill out the team with their injuries and everything. But a really good article about that and the challenges that they face and how coaches have to adapt when, presented with certain situations. So again, a couple of things I'd throw there, but we're going to throw it over to Kathy and get her initial thoughts here about the game tonight with the Amos angle.
Yeah. Hey, happy Valentine's Day for all of you out there who celebrate such days. Happy February and Wednesday, halfway through the week for those of us that work Monday through Friday, I guess. So all around it was a good loss, or excuse me, good game tonight. I don't know, I frazzled myself up. Good win for the team, right? It was coming off of a pretty big win and a record-breaking night with Mackenzie Holmes. They go to Wisconsin, and we have another player breaking a record. So congratulations to Sarah with that. That's just amazing. And I'm sure we'll touch on her a little bit throughout the game here, throughout the show. But, it's one of those games that, we kind of talked about it after the Purdue game on Sunday, where maybe this was a trap game, and it didn't really quite feel like that, but it definitely was And I can't even say a tale of two halves. It was a tale of like 4 different quarters. Each quarter kind of felt almost like a different game to me within a game. That first quarter where we came out and it was just a little bit stagnant. Our defense wasn't quite locked in, giving up 19 points. And then we turn around and only give 6 points up in the second quarter. So completely, turn it around defensively. And then we jump to the third quarter. We come out and we seem really flat again. It's interesting. We talked about after the Purdue game, how the team got together and talked about their slow starts after halftime, and they changed their halftime routine up. And we said, we're going to keep an eye on that. Well, it didn't work tonight, at least offensively. And it just wasn't real pretty basketball with us scoring 7 and Wisconsin scoring 14 in that third quarter. But then we come back out in the fourth quarter and we really pick up that offense again and end up scoring 20 points in that quarter. So, it was just kind of a weird, almost like 4 different games within the game tonight for me. So, I don't think it was our best basketball, but I don't think it was our worst basketball. And at the end of the day, we came away with another nice road win against, a Wisconsin team that's really young. And to be honest, I think I saw glimpses of them. That everyone should keep an eye on. Their coach is, no joke. She came from a nice program as the assistant coach at UConn, learning there. I think she was an assistant there about 5 or 6 seasons there, and then had her own head coaching job before coming here. So again, I think Wisconsin, maybe not this year, is somebody, obviously you're not going to think too much on, but don't sleep on them, in my opinion, going forward. And I think we might be talking about them more in future seasons than we saw tonight. But overall, that's kind of my overarching thoughts. A nice record-breaking night and just a tale of four mini games within the game.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, Kathy, about how it was really kind of just different games within the game. But when you really look at it, I thought, again, I'll go back to this a little bit and get your thoughts on it. If you take out that third quarter, Indiana scored 20 plus points every quarter. And so if they would have just had a normal third quarter, we'd be talking probably about a 75-point night or excuse me, about an 80-point night. And we'd all probably be feeling a little bit better about the way the game went. And then if you look at the defensive side, for as bad as the third quarter felt, and the first quarter wasn't great, we never gave up more than 20 and a quarter. So were we really as bad as we think?
Right.
Or as it appeared? And again, I get it. It wasn't a game, but it just, sometimes the numbers tell you a story. And Wisconsin, I agree with you. I totally agree. This team next year, I think, is a team you really don't want to face. I could see them making. Now, I say this, but we also got to remember you got 4 teams coming into the league, USC and UCLA, who right now look like they'll be very good coming into the league.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Oregon and Washington, especially Oregon, has had traditionally some success, been down from where they were when they had Sabrina Ionescu and even when Sydney Parrish first showed up out there. But I totally can see this Wisconsin team making the jump from 10, 11, maybe 12 in the league this year to being, we're talking about them in a 6 or 7 slot, next year. I really can see that because I love Ronnie Porter's game after watching her tonight. The Williams girl is just tough. She is very strong, and
only a sophomore.
Yeah, and only a sophomore. And I'm not saying this to be and I don't want anybody to think when I say this in a positive derogatory. This is just coach speak. She's a load. I wouldn't want to really have to try and game plan for her because she's only going to get better and stronger. And so, she's got just a huge upside. But yeah, I kind of get your thought a little bit more about that in terms of especially the offensive side of it, where we scored 20 points a quarter, except for the third quarter.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm not quite sure what happened in that third quarter. To be honest, other than our shots just weren't falling. And I don't know, you tell me, Jeff, if I'm misfeeling on this, but it didn't feel to me that Wisconsin all of a sudden ratcheted up their D on that third quarter. It just felt like our shots weren't falling from the outside, from the inside. Mackenzie Holmes went 11 of 19 on the game. And she's rarely at that low of a field goal percentage. In general, we shot 65% from the field to start. And I know we're not in the numbers section, but 57% field goal percentage in the first half. And then we ended up the game at only, where are we? 44%. So quite a drop off in that second half. And especially in that third quarter. And again, like I don't really think it was Wisconsin's defense all of a sudden became spectacular over what we saw in the first half. It just, our shots just weren't really falling for us.
No, I totally agree with that because we didn't turn it over a ton. I think we only had 2 or 3 turnovers in the third quarter. So in the second half, we only turned it over 5 times. We had a good night on turnovers from the standpoint.
Yeah.
I look at this, and again, I know we're not in the numbers, but as you're talking a little bit about breaking it down, look at the second half free throws. We only shot 3. That tells me to a certain degree, I'm not sure we were quite as aggressive as we should have been. I always say it's about Mac. I thought Mac maybe, I don't want to say shied away, but I felt like settled for the turnaround shot a little more rather than trying to take one more step, not travel. I'm just talking about taking one more step on your pivot move and trying to create an angle to get to the rim or the glass a little more. And so I chalked it up. Hey, teams have bad shooting quarters. All right. They can have bad shooting nights too. We've seen this, in the college game, for a while we've been doing the show, and luckily Indiana, knock on wood, doesn't generally have bad games. Stanford was probably one of them, but I agree with you. I thought it was just it was a rough shooting night, and you get those. Hey, I'd rather have it on a game like tonight where you are the favorite than have it happen in 10 days, 12 days, 8 days when Iowa comes to town. Yeah.
Yes.
I finally got there. My math's not good tonight. We're really struggling here with the podcast tonight. We're wondering what we're doing.
It's too late. We're usually not up this late.
Yeah, I agree. So, hey, speaking of which, let's move on to the pivotal plays, Kathy, and I'll let you go first.
Yeah. It was interesting. I think, I don't know if it turned out to be pivotal per se. And, I kind of talked right before we went live. I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of pivotal plays. Again, it was just this weird tale of 4 different quarters that felt like different games. But in that first one, first quarter at the 8:01 mark, Yarden got her second foul already. And I think that also attested to maybe why that first quarter for us in particular felt a little bit slow. So I believe she sat the rest of that entire first quarter. Yeah. And Jules came in for her, right? And Jules is a freshman. She's still learning. Her defense isn't what Yarden is yet. She's a little, like you mentioned in our Discord chat, she's more up and down and prone to fouling as well. And Jules would end up fouling out later in the game too. But I think that just kind of threw off our rhythm of what we were probably trying to get into in that first quarter. And we never quite got there in there. And, Yarden, it wasn't her best night for us. The first time I think we can remember her not scoring a point at all. But she ended up with only 3 fouls. So at least she was able to turn around the fouling. And I thought her defense picked up definitely after that. And it helped, with that. But we ended up playing Jules and Lene quite a bit in that first quarter. And on the road, you wouldn't expect to have us have 2 freshmen on the floor at the same time in that quarter. But I thought that was kind of pivotal because I think it probably changed what the coaches were expecting to do, at least from an offensive perspective, and a little bit from defensive perspective as well.
Yeah, and I want to say this. I thought Jules and Lene gave us some solid minutes. And I'll go back to Jules real quick when I posted on Discord more about just she's upright. She doesn't really get down in that stance and stay there. She tends to be a little more upright. And I think that's one of the reasons a quicker player gives her some issues right now where she's not able to make a little bit quicker first step because she's a little more down in the stance. I think that's a freshman thing. I think that's something that she will get better at as she gets worked into the system. I think there's sometimes where Jules and Lene both sometimes I think are thinking too much about the scouting report in terms of I'm supposed to do this. And sometimes gets a little bit, half a step slow. And in the college game, that half a step can be huge. And I thought that was part of some of the things of why they got beat maybe a little bit off the dribble, but the freshmen weren't the only ones getting beat off the dribble in the first quarter. I mean, Ronnie Porter was making us look pretty tough from that standpoint. I'm going to jump ahead here. I'm going to go 7 minutes and 30 seconds to go in the quarter. And not to know so much it was pivotal, but just notable. Mac hit her second 3 of the season, nothing but net.
Yeah.
And so, more of that, Mac, more.
Right. And then
especially since
fast forward to the end of the game, and her backup Lily comes in and hits a three right at the end of the game.
and that makes me
So
is that
it
it
was
makes me wonder, is
there
that Lily's first career three? Because I can't remember Lily hitting a three.
I can't remember her ever shooting one, let alone making
Yeah.
one.
So
So, one other last thing, at least for me in the first quarter, of note, which was interesting, that at about the 3.5 minute mark, Wisconsin pressed us. And we ended up getting a 10-second call. And again, just not handling the press, but then it didn't feel like Wisconsin ever really went back to it. So it not that we're going to expect an Ohio State press, and certainly but it wasn't a Michigan State press either. I just was surprised they didn't do it on a more regular basis when we have shown this year that we've had trouble with it. And immediately when they pressed this for the first time, they caught a turnover. So a little surprised Wisconsin didn't come back to that press a little more often in the game.
a little bit, but they didn't play well.
Unless
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, unless maybe they don't, maybe they don't practice it enough, or they didn't trust their conditioning enough, or whatever. I don't know. But what are your thoughts on why they quit pressing when it worked?
Well, first of all, I didn't think they scored enough in the second quarter to be able to set it up. That was part of their issue. They really
Yeah,
didn't have
that's the
opportunities.
problem.
But I also wonder, they really only played 7 players. They played 8 total, but really only 7 got decent minutes. So I wonder if maybe they thought were a little worried about
Yeah.
fatigue if they
Mhm.
were trying to press. That would be more my gut with that. And plus, once IU made the run to kind of get up there to about 10 or 12, then you're kind of wondering, well, now the press just, if they beat the press out, coach things. If they beat the press, now I'm just giving them more opportunities to score without the defense really having a chance to be in their face, or a hand in their face, anything like that. So I think Coach Mosley just made a decision that she might get a few things from the press, like a 10-second call, maybe a silly turnover, but I think she felt like they were giving up too much easy anyway. So she was going to try and eliminate some of that. So, but honestly, I think it was more about the depth. I don't think they really wanted to, go into the bench
Wear
that deep.
themselves out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into the second quarter,
Yep.
and I'm going to go, and not so much a particular play, but there was a streak there where Sarah Scalia had 6 straight points. She threw up a shot on a drive, got fouled, kind of throws it up toward the basket, and it goes in. I even said in the Discord, how did that go in? And then got the free throw, then came down and hit another 3. So that little mini 6-0 burst, Kathy, I felt like really kind of jump-started the second quarter even for us. Second quarter kind of started out even just a tad slow, but we got that little 6-0 burst from Sarah, and I thought that really jump-started the rest of the quarter for us.
Yeah, I do too. What I wrote down was Sarah Scalia with a circus shot that goes in and is fouled. So yeah, I had the same thought that you did, and I even put in my notes that, does this give us some momentum? And it did, because about a minute or so later, Sarah goes down and gets that 3 that ended up tying the season record at the time. So I thought too. Chloe Moore McNeil had a block at around 3 minutes in that quarter as well. That was really it was great to see. And I think someone put in the Discord, I think this was the play where they're like, this is why we love Chloe, because she's so smart basketball IQ wise. And I think she saw that somebody else on her team was going to get beat. So she kind of slid over to help, and not only was there to help, but she ended up getting that block. And I thought that was really a great thing to see from Chloe. And overall, I thought Chloe's game tonight was just really on point again. And, congratulations to her on getting into that, National Players of the Week mid-season team award. So, excuse me, a National Players of the Week award. So that was really cool to see. So, it was great. We ended up on an 11-0 run or so, maybe 13-0 run at one point in that quarter. And that really, I thought, broke it open for us. And it felt pretty secure at that point. Before I go back to you real quick, Ari fact checked for us, and Lily had taken a 3-point attempt in the Stanford game. So this was her second attempt this year. So first make, second attempt. But yeah, I didn't have any other pivotal plays really in that second quarter. I just, like you talked about, that it felt like runs as opposed to specific plays that were pivotal in this game.
Well, then why don't you jump us ahead to the second half?
Yeah. So right out again, Yarden comes out in that third quarter and gets her 3rd foul. And again, that ended up being her last foul. But again, I thought that could have been really a pivotal point for us. But Wisconsin just really opened it up on us in that third quarter. Again, it wasn't, our defense kind of got a little lax. They did have a little bit more energy, I thought, than we did. They cut the lead down to 6 at one point, and finally, with about 4.5 minutes to go, Lexi gets a steal and then gets it down to Chloe, who then finds Lily on a fast break, and we get that lead back up to 45-37. So back up to 8 points. And so I thought that was probably about the turning point, getting pretty close to it, where it felt like we were getting a little bit back into control. But that quarter in general just was not a good offensive quarter for us. I mean, I can't remember, other than maybe in the Stanford game, we probably were held to single digits in a quarter in that game, and maybe against Iowa, but this is a rare event where we only score 7 points in a quarter. So I think, again, it was just an off quarter shooting for us.
Yeah, and Wisconsin, I think, hit their first 6 shots. They finished 6 for 9. And I thought that, there was one of those where the girl made the runner right as the shot clock was running out. And it's like, really? This is what we're going to get in the second half? Now you starting to wonder a little bit. I will admit this, coaching high school is totally different from coaching college basketball. I get that. But I was like screaming at the TV a little bit. I said in the Discord, get a timeout. But I get the fact that you're going to get a timeout every quarter. You're going to get the media timeout at the under 5. But I just felt like the momentum, especially once it got down to about 7 to 8, I felt like the momentum had kind of really swung a little bit, and I wanted to just kind of get them refocused. But again, with a veteran team, she may not feel the need to necessarily do that, even on the road in a Big Ten game. With that, I'm going to jump ahead into the fourth quarter. And, go and because again, the third quarter was not a great thing for us, and, offensively or defensively. But I'm going to jump ahead to 8:30 to go in the fourth quarter, where Yarden had not played well. We already discussed that, but she had 2 nice back-to-back plays where she made nice passes to Mac to get shots late, basically layups. And Mac was fouled actually on the second one, had a potential 3-point play. She missed the free throw, but that little 4-point swing there pushed the lead up to 54-41. And that was the beginning really of Indiana going on about an 11 to 2, on about I'm trying to do my math real quick, about a 13-4 run, in that segment. And so I thought those were 2 pivotal plays there.
Yeah. Absolutely. The last one I think was the most pivotal play to me, was what I kind of, the nail in the proverbial coffin, I thought, for Wisconsin. And that came at 5:15, where Lily was in, and she got a great, fantastic block that led down to the other end for a Chloe McNeil 3, and Chloe ended up 4 for 4 and 3 again tonight. So she had the previous game at 5 for 5 and now 4 for 4. But that forced Wisconsin to take a turnover, and it got our lead up to 63-43. And at that point, I don't think we really ever kind of looked back. Not the last 5 minutes, maybe again, weren't spectacular basketball, but it was again enough that we held on to that lead quite fine and ended up winning that 68-54. So still extended our lead even after that. Actually, we didn't extend our lead, but we lost it a little bit, but still that got up to 20 points, and it felt kind of insurmountable. We really are not on our game tonight either. Are we? So,
boy, man,
bad math, can't talk. It happens. Like sometimes they have off shooting nights, and sometimes you have off podcasting nights. So, but anyway, that was for me the last pivotal play, because that 3-pointer from Chloe, I thought, just kind of sealed it for us.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I felt like it sealed it, but then just kind of we got stuck on 63. It was like we couldn't get off of it there for a little bit, and finally we got a couple buckets down the stretch, including Lily's 3. But I thought also there was a point there, and I thought a good move by Coach Morin to get Mac out, Yarden out. I think even took Chloe out there, maybe about 2.5, 3 minutes to go, which explains a little bit of that. But I thought that was a good move. And somebody had mentioned it in the Discord. I think it might have been Brian who mentioned in the Discord, he was actually at the game, that he felt like they looked a little tired, kind of from the get-go. And yeah, a little bit of a short turnaround because you played Sunday. Now you're playing again Wednesday, but you're going to get some time off, and not off, but you're not going to play until Monday. Now that's an afternoon game we'll talk about here in a little bit, but you're going to getting them a few minutes extra rest. It may not seem big to people, But from a coaching standpoint, a player standpoint, every little bit helps. And so, that's just, that I thought that was a great move there. So let's move on to the notable numbers, Kathy. And I'm going to throw it over to you and let you go first.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways you can go tonight. An interesting number to me, I think, is turnovers and points off of turnovers. So we ended up winning both battles there. We had 11 turnovers to Wisconsin's 19. But those 19 points or turnovers returned into 29 points for us and only 11 for Wisconsin. I thought that was a big difference in the game, especially in the first half, where we won that points off of turnovers 19-5. So I don't think it was necessarily all just our defense. I think a lot of it was, I think we rattled Wisconsin a couple times and we really ratcheted up the defense. And I think a lot of it was a testament to their youth that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. But we capitalized on them, which sometimes is not sometimes it is more important, I think, than just the pure turnover number. I think those always go hand in hand together. So that's kind of the first number I wanted to jump to.
I'm going to point out we already talked a little bit about shooting, but the free throw line tonight. Indiana had been doing better at the free throw line of late. This was a team that struggled through really kind of Christmas time at the free throw line. They were in the high 68, 69% for a team, for the season. And tonight they were 10 for 16, 62.5%. So they did leave some points at the free throw line tonight. And in a game like this, where you're feeling like you're really struggling to score, the line someplace where you can, you can kind of maybe gain some confidence. But also, again, I pointed out earlier, they only shot 3 free throws the entire second half. Again, that to me tells me about aggressiveness a little bit. So the free throw percentage and the number, especially in the second half, was something I thought was notable.
Yeah, absolutely. The other number I think for us that we've been watching a lot this year is rebounding. And we've been talking about how our rebounding margin, we've been winning that rebounding battle, but leading into tonight, but tonight we did not. Wisconsin out rebounded us 32-26. And a big part of it was Williams. I mean, she ended up with 14 rebounds, and there were multiple times when they had, I'm sure quite a few of them were offensive. I'll see if I can pull it up as I'm trying to talk. But we just really struggled to keep her off of the offensive glass. I guess not. Only 4 of them were offensive. Yep. It sure felt a lot more than that, but 14 rebounds for her alone was a big contributor. We just had a hard time keeping her off the glass. Kind of to your point, she was something to handle, and she definitely showed it tonight with her double of 18 and 14. So again, 26-32 out rebounded tonight by Wisconsin.
Yeah, and you talk about that, though. The rebounds, as I was getting ready to say, and Ari pointed out in the chat, both teams had 7 offensive rebounds. But I felt like it was kind of like you. I felt the deficit was bigger than just, a -6. We were -7 at the half, so we were actually a little bit better in the second half. But I thought that was one. I'm going to go to a positive here. And again, we've really hammered on the bench at times this year, but the bench actually outscored their bench 12-9. Got us. And we've talked about this, Kathy. I'm just a big believer. Crooked numbers, just put crooked numbers in the stat lines. And when it's points, obviously that helps, but you got to be contributing, whether it's points, rebounds, assists, be putting crooked numbers in there. And I thought the kids off the bench did that tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point with our bench, we had, our 3 main bench players tonight had those 12 points. So Lene Beaumont, Jules, and Lily Meister. And Lene and Jules, again, our 2 freshmen, played 31 minutes total, 15 for Jules and 16 for Lene. And Lily contributed a nice 8 off of the bench as well. And honestly, I think that we probably would have seen a little bit more from Lily tonight if we wouldn't have had Williams in there. And, I was listening to the pregame interview between Coach and Austin Rinder, and Coach had said that, they were not planning to double team Williams tonight. And most of the time we did not do that. There was a couple times we kind of dug down on her and tried to double a little bit, but for the most part we didn't. And I think that's probably why we saw Mackenzie a little bit more tonight and a little less of Lily than maybe we would have on a different night playing Wisconsin.
And by the way, this was our 11th straight win over Wisconsin. We forgot to mention that at the top 10th. Of the broadcast.
It was our 10th.
10th. That was it. 10th. I knew I heard it on the broadcast. But I will say this about Lily. I mean, this was the first time all year I can remember where Mac played the entire first quarter
Yeah,
And pretty much deep into this, or about the first 3 or 4 minutes of the second quarter, because somebody brought it up in the Discord. I don't remember who it was. What was asking if Lily was injured or anything because she hadn't been in the game yet. And so, but I
that's
think
right.
a good point by you, and we talked about in the Discord a little bit, that just really like that matchup with Williams at Mac against Williams. And you'd brought up the fact that she told Austin that they didn't plan on doubling her. Now, I'm yelling at the TV, double her and make somebody else, because they're not a good 3-point shooting team. So I was a little
Right.
surprised by the
Right.
philosophy, but sometimes, and again, we know about coaches in cream and crimson who tend to get stubborn. Coaches sometimes don't want to get away from the game plan. And again, it
Any
worked
coach
out.
in general can be like
Yeah.
that. But yes.
But it got a little, but there were times tonight, I think I would have been like, let's double her and make somebody else beat us, because just not a great 3-point shooting team. But they were on the broadcast. They talked about Coach Tsai had the scout, and for the
Yeah.
most part, can't say she did a bad job with it, because obviously got
No.
out of the way. But you look at, and we talked about this, and again, I'm not trying to take away from your time here, but Williams, a double, 18 and 14. She's a
18 and
sophomore.
14. Yeah.
Sophomore.
Yeah, she's just going to put muscle on and get more experience. And yeah, definitely keeping an eye on her going forward. So the other one I wanted to talk about was points in the paint. We lost that one to 24-26. And of course, 18 of it, I'm sure, was from Williams. Mackenzie Holmes had 24 points too. And other than her 3 and her 1 free throw, all of her points came in the paint too. So she had the bulk of them. I think that the majority of the reason why we got beat in the points in the paint, in addition to Sarah Williams, was just our inability again to kind of handle their athletic guards, especially Ronnie Porter. I thought Ronnie in that first quarter, she had 8 points by herself. And she ended up still with 11 points. But that first quarter in particular, I really thought we were struggling to kind of contain their dribble drive and keep them off of the glass as well. So, 18 points for Williams, but, they got some points in the paint from, I think, some of their guards as well. And it just felt like they were getting down there and even finding Williams as well when they could penetrate that deep. So again, I think that's been a problem for a few seasons, and I think we saw it again tonight.
We did a little bit, but I felt we got a better handle on
Yeah.
Ronnie Porter after the first quarter. I thought there wasn't now, either they weren't playing the game plan in the first quarter well enough, or they made an adjustment there, because especially when Lexi was guarding her, I saw Lexi going under way more screens than I saw in the first quarter. And that's a good strategy, because they're not a 3-point shooting team.
Nope.
Ronnie Porter had their only 3 of the night. She was 1 of 3, but they only shot 7. Again, kind of similar to a team that we all kind of talk about. But you just gotta, but yeah, I thought they made it, either they made a nice adjustment, or early on they weren't playing to the game plan, and they were getting, kind of getting over the top of the screen, or getting caught at a bad angle, and we're getting, just getting beat off the dribble one way or the other. But I thought they made a nice adjustment on Ronnie Porter later in the second, third, fourth quarter from that standpoint. Kathy, I really don't have any other notable numbers I want to talk about.
No, me neither.
All right, so let's move on to the game ball. And for those of you watching on the live YouTube, you'll notice that Kathy has pulled up the scroll here. I'm trying to read it real quick. Mackenzie Holmes with 9, Sarah Scalia with 5, Sydney Parrish with 2, Yarden Garzon with 2, and Chloe Morton McNeil with 2, I think is what I'm reading.
They're all 3s, but
all
that's
threes. My eyes are going ahead. My bifocals aren't good enough.
Yes.
But 3. So let me go back through that. Parrish, Garzon, and Chloe with 3 each. All right.
That's right.
There we go. So Kathy, I'm going to let you go first here. And I think we both got to be in agreement here tonight on the game ball.
Yeah, I think for me, the game ball has to go to Mackenzie Holmes. She, even though she wasn't as efficient as we normally do see her from either field goals or free throws, I mean, and 1 for 4 for her is not like her. She still ended up with 24 points. And she had a really tough matchup with Williams, both offensively and defensively. And I understand that Williams got her average at 18. Excuse me, but Mackenzie, I thought, made it hard on her. She only shot 6 of 16 to get to her 18 points. So I thought overall Mackenzie had a nice game, contributed as well, 8 rebounds. She did have a few turnovers for us, but overall I thought that was a really nice game for Mackenzie. So for me, she gets my game ball.
Yeah, that's where I was going. I'm going to go with Mackenzie. Yeah, a little bit of a struggle shooting the ball tonight, but she led the team in rebounding with 8. She had, you mentioned the 3 turnovers, but she also had a block and 4 steals. So Mackenzie really did bring, as close to an A game tonight as anybody did here. So we're going to make Mackenzie Holmes with the game ball here. That'll give her 10 for
10.
the season. 10 for the season for Mac. And so that's her for the game ball. So again, I didn't think that was a hard one. We're going to move on to the Grace Berger Hardest Worker Award. And again, we'll try and get the scroll here for those of you watching on the YouTube. Sydney Parrish leads with 5. Mackenzie Holmes also has 5. So there's a tie now. Lexi Bargesser with
5.
Wow, we got a 3-way tie. Chloe Morgan Neal with 3. Sarah Scalia with 2, Lene with 2, and Lily with 1. All right.
That's
so
yes.
With that. So again, I'm hosting tonight. So Kathy, you go first on the Grace Berger.
Yeah, so I think you could talk about a number of ones. You could talk about Sarah with her 15 points and her 4 of 8 shooting from 3-point land. I thought she had a nice night, definitely offensively, and congratulations again on breaking that season record that she had. I thought Lexi played pretty tough and hard at times as well, but I finally settled actually on Chloe Moore McNeil. She contributed 12 points. She was again perfect from 3-point land, 4-4, but she was also tied, with Lexi for 5 assists as well and contributed 4 rebounds. And I thought her defense was just really pretty locked in for the most part tonight. We talked about that really great block that she had. She also contributed a steal. And so to me, I think Chloe out there was just really becoming the floor general for us over the last 4 or 5 games. And she's really blossomed, I think, in those games. So for me, Chloe gets my Grace Berger Hardest Worker.
Yeah, and I was given some consideration even to Lene. Again, just because I felt like Lene, 16 minutes, she had 5 points. Big thing for Lene that probably draws her away a little bit. She had 4 fouls. And I made this comment in the Discord. Sometimes the freshmen don't quite understand how to play without fouling. They're trying to be physical. They're trying to do what coaches are telling them. Hey, get up on them, get physical, fight through the screens. But sometimes as freshmen, you got to learn how to do that so you're not getting called for a foul every time. Kind of like Lily, and Lily had a nice night, only 8 minutes, but she had 5 points in those 8 minutes. And I thought, she had 2 rebounds, a block, a steal, but Lily's getting like 1 moving screen call a game at least. She and or the coaching staff have got to get that eliminated. That's a free turnover. I used to refer to it as a free turnover because basically you're not even throwing the ball away. That's just not getting the screen set. And sometimes it's not on Lily per se. She's the one getting called for because sometimes the ball handler's not setting it up or waiting enough. But the one tonight was just, it was like you could see her just kind of lean on it. It's like, that's going to get called 9 times out of 10. And that's kind of what she gets called for more than anything. So, but back to Lene, I really thought Lene was having a pretty good night, but just the fouls, especially that offensive foul she got, I thought like, just take it up. She tried to make she tried to make an extra move and kind of lean in with the shoulder and got called for the offensive foul. But I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go with Chloe Moore McNeil. Just when you look at it from an efficiency standpoint, she was the most efficient offensive player tonight. 4 for 6, absolutely. 4 of 4 from deep. As you mentioned, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, and a block. I'm going to go with you. Chloe Moore McNeil will be our Grace Berger Hardest Worker for tonight, and that's going to bump her up to 4 Grace Berger Hardest Worker Awards. And so we're going to throw it to you, Kathy, for some Mac Watch and maybe even start in on some Sarah Watch.
Yes, we'll have to rename this segment the Mac and Sarah Watch. So we already talked about Sarah again tonight, record breaking for most 3-pointers in a single season. So far it's 79, more to come. So we're watching her climb up on Steve Alford. Just to repeat that she's 28 3-point shots behind. Also climbing up on Steve Alford is Mackenzie with scoring. So after tonight, she is now 49 points from tying Steve Alford. So she's currently averaging just over 20 points per game. So that would be roughly about 2.5 games from now if she is able to stay on pace with those 20 points. I'm going to keep watching the Calvert Chaney number 2. That's 224 points. So again, at that average, she would need to be able to play 11 more games this season. So we have 4 more regular season games. So we'd have to make a really deep run in both the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament, or she'd just have to surpass her 20 points per game. So I think she might get pretty close to Calvert, but I don't know that she's going to catch him. But I fully expect she will catch and pass Mr. Alford.
I would agree with that.
All
right. So let's talk about who we got coming up next. That's Monday at Illinois. This is a President's Day game. So the game time is 2:00 Eastern, 1 Central. It's on Fox. Kathy and I will talk about this a little bit again at the end of the show, but we will not be doing a post-game show immediately after the game. Kathy has to work. I have some things going on as well right after the game around that time because I'm off work that day and my wife is off work. So we got some things we're going to try and do a little bit right after the game. But Kathy and I will be on here Monday night with a post-game show. So don't look for us right after the game. We'll be on a little bit later Monday evening. But right now, Illinois is currently number 57 in the net. This is a team, Kathy, and I want to get your thoughts on this when I get done with the preview, but just on paper, this is a team that's talented. This is a team that should be well above 500, but for one reason or another, the chemistry, the ability to finish games, however you want to put it, just hasn't been there. They're currently 11-12 overall, 5-8 in the Big Ten. But this game makes me nervous. I talked about this with Michigan State just because I thought Michigan State was talented. People are going to look at Illinois and they're going to be like, Illinois is 5-8, we're 12-2. This game makes me nervous. Now, if Sydney Parrish plays, I may feel a little less nervous, but this game has me nervous on Wednesday night going ahead. IU leads the all-time series 49-29. They've won 16 in a row. The last loss to Illinois was January 27th of 2005 in Champaign. Knock on wood, maybe we shouldn't have mentioned that one. IU won the last matchup on New Year's Eve in Bloomington. Again, in Bloomington on New Year's Eve, 77-71. Tough game. And that was when we had everybody healthy. So, Kathy, real quick, your thoughts about just Illinois in general, and then I'll let you talk about their head coach and some of their stats and their players.
Yep. So I'll cover that real quick, the head coach and some stats and stuff, and then I'll give you my thoughts. But yeah, so Shauna Green, this is her second year at Illinois, where they went 22-10 and 11-7 last year. 6 seasons before that at Dayton, where she captured 5 Atlantic 10 regular season championships and had a record of 127-50. As a team, offensively, Illinois is 8th in the Big Ten, averaging 74 points per game, 6th defensively, giving up 66 points per game. From a shooting standpoint, they're 6th in the league at 45%, 8th on defense, field goal percentage at 41%. Their 3-point shooting is pretty far down, 13th in the league at 31%, but they give up only 29%, which is 3rd in the league from 3. Very good free throw shooting team. So if we start fouling again and have some foul bugs, they do shoot 78% from the line, which is 2nd. And then they're 6th in the league at rebounding margin, basically 3 rebounds per game. They're 5th in the league at turnover margin at 2.8, where they commit 12 but force about 15. So that's the stats on the team. We can talk more about the individual players in a minute, but yeah, I agree with you, Jeff. I mean, if you run through their numbers, what they've put up this year, for the most part, they're kind of middle of the pack in the league, right? They're not really shooting anybody out of the gym, but they're not defensive great, but they're not at the bottom of the league, but they just don't seem to be kind of gelling in getting those games that we would have expected. And you see that in their 5-8 conference record. But I agree with you. This one makes me very nervous. I think kind of mentally, when I was putting together my preseason rankings or predictions, rather, I thought we were going to lose 4 Big Ten games. And one of them was potentially this Illinois on the road game. That I was kind of nervous about. Like you mentioned, we only won by 6 at home. And that was with everybody healthy. And even if Sydney comes back, it's going to be rusty, right? She hasn't played for 7 games now and coming off of a foot injury. Don't know what kind of conditioning she's going to have, even if she does play. And just so everyone knows, we're not sure she's going to. We've just heard rumors that she is, or potentially could be. I mean, it would be great to get her back a game before the Iowa game, but I hope they're also not looking ahead to that Iowa game, which is going to be a huge game as well. So this one makes me really nervous, and especially if they come out like they did tonight. where they're a little flat. They're not locked in defensively, especially. Illinois can definitely put up some points, especially from, field goal percentage. So, yeah, this one makes me nervous for sure.
Yeah, I think the one thing that holds them back this year is their three-point shooting. This is a team that shot it better than last year. I don't have the exact numbers, but just know watching them that they were a little better three-point shooting team. But when you're shooting 31% as a team with some of the scores they got, that's a little bit of what I think is holding them back. They just, if they get behind, they don't have that ability to really just get back in a hurry. Now, their guards are going to try and get downhill on our guards. And we've talked about this a number of times, not just with Illinois, but teams like Michigan State. Those tend to be the teams that give us fits. So I'm going to take real quick. Let's kind of go, take turns here on their personnel. I'll start Makira Cook at 5'6" point guard or 5'6" senior guard, averaging 14, just over 14 a game. She's 15th in the league. She's shooting 38% from the field, 85% at the free throw line, which is 6th in the league. She's 10th in the league with just over 4 assists. And she's 2nd in the league in minutes at 34.5. She was a first team All Big Ten last year. Again, she was a player that transferred in from Dayton with the head coach, Shauna Green. But Makira Cook is one that can get hot. She might be the one player, especially from the 3-point line, who's had a really rough year, but it has the ability to be kind of streaky. And if she gets hot, she can fill it up in a hurry.
Yeah, I think she's the one for sure to keep an eye on. And then the other person that I will probably be watching how we defend her is Genesis Bryant. She is also a 5'6" senior guard. When I was putting together the run sheet, I'm like, did I type that wrong? Are they really both 5'6" senior guards? Yes, they absolutely are. And she is also averaging right around 14 points per game. So 14.1 for Genesis Bryant, 14.4 for Makira Cook. So very similar. And ironically, I had to double check myself on this. Exactly the same field goal percentage at 38.4% for both players. So I thought that was very odd. But I went back and double checked my work on that one. But yeah, also a very good free throw shooting person. As I mentioned, Illinois is a good free throw shooting team in general. She's also their leader in terms of field goal percentage at 35.4%, which is 9th in the league. She's also leading them in assists at 3.4 assists per game, which is 3rd in the conference, and then 1.5 steals per game at 17th in the conference. So last year she made the 2nd team All Big Ten, and prior to that she was at NC State. So you have two transfers that Shauna Green got in that are pretty much, I think, huge contributors for their teams in terms of points and assists and things like that. So those are two, I think, of the 3 people in particular we need to definitely keep an eye on.
Yeah, she's the big thing with those two is their ability to really get downhill and to drive, from that standpoint. One of their other players that we'll talk about a little bit, Kendall Bostic, 6'2" senior forward out of Kokomo, Northwestern High School, played with Madison Layden in high school, who was at Purdue. Sydney Parrish and Kendall have known each other for a while. So I remember this game, New Year's Eve game was one that my family and I were at. And I remember them kind of having a big hug after the game and talking real quickly after the game and before the teams left the floor. But Kendall Bostic's 3rd in the league at 10 rebounds a game. She's shooting just over 61% from the field, which is 3rd in the league, but she's roughly right around a double-digit score. So she's not getting a ton of shot opportunities. Now, I'm not trying to make that as a negative on her or the team. It's just, it's a guard-dominated team. So Kendall's shots are not coming as out of some of the flow. But she will work her butt off, and you got to make sure you keep her off the glass, especially on the offensive end.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last one of probably their starters that we should keep eye out is Adalia McKenzie. She's a 5'10" junior guard. She is also averaging double digits at 10 points per game. So I think those are the 4 main players that we will probably be keeping our eye on from an Illinois standpoint.
Yeah, and again, we last year in Champaign, a little easier win than we had in Bloomington, which went to overtime. This year in Bloomington, a 6-point win. let's hope it, kind of holds the form. But again, this game makes me nervous. Pulling up some of her hoop stats stuff. The rating on her hoop stats, IU 7th. This is up before tonight's game. IU 7th, Illinois 59th, which is pretty close. It's interesting that her hoops has us a little higher than the net does, but that 59 is right around where Illinois is on the net. Offensive efficiency, IU 7th, Illinois 32nd. Defensive efficiency, IU's 114th, Illinois 208th. Effective field goal percentage before tonight, IU was first in the country at 59.5, Illinois at 68th, 49.2. Points per play, or points per possession, excuse me, IU was second coming into tonight, Illinois 31st. Rebound rate, Indiana 56th, Illinois 95th. Assist rate, I thought this was interesting. 38th for IU, 242nd for Illinois. And what that tells me is Illinois gets a lot of their stuff off dribble drive.
Yep, exactly. So my key to the game is exactly, you led me right into it, is how can we stop their dribble penetration, and what does our defense look like against Illinois? That is my biggest key I'm going to be watching, in addition to, of course, what we've been talking about all year, is if we can keep them from getting those second chance points and rebounding. So again, those are my two big things that I want to really see. I want us to come out with a huge intensity on defense, because I think if we don't set that tone early, I think we could get in trouble here pretty quick.
Yeah. And I'll give you the typical coachman. It comes down to rebounding and turnovers, because you got to be able to keep them off the glass, and you got to limit the turnovers, because if you do, it takes away some of their ability to score in transition. And if they have to try and go against you half court, again, they've given us some trouble on the half court, but their guards are a little smaller. So if they're having to grind out possessions, that makes it a little harder for them. So defense and turnovers, or excuse me, rebounding and turnovers is what I'm looking at. Kathy, real quick, why don't you just take us around the Big Ten here, and as we wrap up.
Not a whole lot has happened that's of note, other than yesterday. Earlier tonight. Sorry. I've been so confused all week on what day it is. So yes, today, just earlier tonight, Nebraska goes into Ohio State, and Ohio State just mopped the floor with them 80-47. I only got to see kind of part of the second quarter, but I know by halftime, Nebraska had 15 turnovers already. So as we talked about in our loss to them, you're not going to win games like that. But boy, Ohio State is just really, really playing some good basketball right now. So keep an eye out for Ohio State. They're really starting to pull away, I think, from what we're seeing on the floor. Other upcoming games just to keep an eye out on. Tomorrow night, Illinois is going up to Penn State. We did see Wisconsin beat Penn State not that long ago, but then Penn State beats Iowa. So who the heck knows what's going to go on in that game, but it's one to keep an eye on too. I hope it goes into like maybe double, triple overtime, and we can really get some Illinois legs tired out. Michigan is going into Iowa tomorrow night. The big headline, I'm sure people who don't live under a rock have heard about, is Caitlin Clark is only 8 points away from breaking that Kelsey Plum's record. So that will be the storyline tomorrow night in terms of Big Ten play. And then just there are some games on Saturday. Didn't really make a big note of them, but Sunday, Michigan State will be playing at Michigan, and then Penn State will be going up to Maryland. So that might be a couple of games to keep an eye on. And then in terms of standings, this was from just as of today. So Ohio State is still in the lead at 13-1. Since Iowa hasn't played yet, we are in second place at 12-2, and Iowa right behind us at 11-2. Nebraska is now in fourth place at 8-6. Michigan State right behind them, and Michigan both at 7-6, and Penn State at 7-6. So really getting bunched up in that kind of fight for that fourth place spot. Any other games, Jeff, that you're thinking about between now and Monday when we play, or ones that you're really planning on watching the Iowa game?
I might watch a little bit of the Iowa game. Actually, no, I won't be. We're going to be at the Blackhawks game tomorrow night in Chicago.
Okay.
So, Michigan is Michigan somewhat capable of giving them a game? Yeah. But is it also Michigan capable of getting blown out by 25 or 30? Yeah. You just never seem to know of Michigan. I think, Kathy, what's interesting here is you look at, again, the top three teams, hopefully IU doesn't lose anymore. And hopefully IU, if they do, it's only one more. But the top three teams have kind of really separated themselves for the placing in the Big Ten tournament. But boy, right now, look at that jumble at what could potentially all be 8 and 6 by the time we get through tomorrow night. You're talking Nebraska, Michigan State, Michigan, Penn State. And I'm not sure how the tiebreakers would work, but boy, talk about, what could be potential 4, 5, 6, 7 seeds in the Big Ten tournament. And I'm not sure some of the top teams want to see some of those teams. I mean, obviously you got to play them, right. But you know what, you'd rather play them later than earlier. And so
right.
That's going to be one of those things.
And I need to correct myself. Penn State didn't just beat Iowa. That was Nebraska. So clearly, again, not my night tonight. So
it's been
my apologies on that.
Been nobody's night tonight. But I will. Some of the games I'm kind of keeping an eye on right now this weekend. I probably won't watch it. I won't say per se watch. I may catch a minute here or so, but I'll kind of follow the results. Is some of the stuff that's especially happening in the ACC right now. Because if you look at some of the tournament seeding that Charlie Cream's doing in the bracketology, it seems like the Big Ten and the ACC are kind of vying for some of the same spots. Virginia Tech, Louisville, Notre Dame, North Carolina, some of North Carolina State, that they're all kind of vying in, some of the same seeding spots for Charlie Cream. Also, I will point this out. I didn't put this in the news, but the NCAA will release tomorrow night. I believe it's 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern. They will release on ESPN their first unveiling of the top 16. So it'll be very interesting to see where they have IU slotted. I can't imagine IU's outside the top 16, but it'll be interesting to see, because right now Charlie Cream has IU as a 4 seed in his bracketology. And if the NCAA releases it, and let's say they have IU at 11 or 12, well, that's a 3 seed. And so that, it may not sound like a big difference, but it's the difference between.
It's a big difference.
It is. It's the difference between playing a 5 seed in that second round and a 6 seed. So there are some things there with that. But either way, they would be hosting, as long as they stay in the top 4 seeds, they'll be hosting those first 2 rounds in Bloomington. But that's kind of, so I did want to put that out there. But that's kind of what I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be watching some of those results from around, especially the ACC and the Pac-12.
Yeah. And the other thing that's interesting though, Jeff, I forgot to mention this as well, is I think I saw on Twitter tonight where Indiana must be fairly confident we're going to be hosting, because I believe they're already selling tickets for the first 2 rounds.
I got an email.
Bloomington. Yeah. So, anyway, very interesting things coming up. We only have, like I mentioned, a few games left in the regular season. So it's really getting down to the wire here. So going to be a fun into the race, just like we kind of anticipated.
Yeah. So Kathy, I'll throw it to you for final thoughts.
Yeah. So thanks for all the people still kind of hanging with us as we stumble through our late night podcast here tonight. Late night for Jeff and I. We're usually not on this late. So, hey, you know what? It wasn't a great win in terms of prettiness, but it was a great win for the resume and for confidence. Fantastic for Sarah. Getting out there and breaking that record, and Mackenzie having a nice solid game too. So hopefully they just keep rolling. I think, we'll all cross our fingers that we see Sydney on Monday. Sorry for everyone that my work is making me work and I can't take the afternoon off to watch the game, but I still want to get my paycheck. So we'll be talking about that game, and hopefully be talking about yet another road win for this team as they hopefully keep rolling on to the end of this season. And they're still right there and have a chance at least maybe even a share, if not winning the Big Ten outright. If, we can beat Iowa at home, and maybe Ohio State stumbles somewhere else along the line, they still have to play Iowa again on the road as well too. So there might not be a lot of games left to go instead of numbers, but there are a lot of big games left on the conference slate.
Yeah, 4 games left, 2 at home, 2 on the road. So you kind of get some balance back to it a little bit. But I'm with you, Kathy. It was not an A game tonight. It might not even been a B+ game for the Hoosiers. B, maybe B-, kind of spilled over into the Doing the Work podcast. We've we've scuffled around, kind of like my golf game. We've hacked this. We've kind of hacked it around tonight, trying to make a few putts, to make the score look good from that standpoint. But again, that's part of a season, though. When you're playing 18-game Big Ten schedule, when you're playing basically a 30-game regular season schedule, you're not going to have your A game no matter how good you are. Heck, UConn, even their heyday, didn't play A+ games every night. You're going to have nights where you got to find a way to scuffle through. Now, is it fun for us as fans to watch? Is it frustrating sometimes to be like, wow, what's going on? And some of the things we do now with things like Discord? Sure. But at the end of the day, they went to Madison, they got to win, and they stayed in the hunt for a share of the Big Ten title. To win outright, they're going to need a little more help, but they still are in that, that chance to get a share of the a share of the Big Ten title. And that's all that matters at the point. You want to try and get a ring. And so from that standpoint, so that's my final thought on it. So let's head out with some music, Kathy, and we'll talk about what's coming up next afterwards.
Sounds good.
So coming up next, we will return on Monday evening, as we said, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, to recap the Illinois game. That game, again, is a 2 o'clock Eastern time start, 1 o'clock Central in the afternoon, being President's Day, and it is on Fox. AC Radio will be on tomorrow night at their usual time. It's going to be a mailbag episode. So if you follow them also in the Substack, you can post a question for them and they might answer that question tomorrow night on their mailbag episode of AC Radio. If you want to see us do the show live and be a part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to your YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. That's the @ youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. You can be a part of our private community as well. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of Rig Design for rigdesign.com for designing our logos. Also, a big thank you to Bob Thompson for our music that you heard throughout the broadcast. And thanks to all of you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Monday evening. Until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
All right. We bumbled through that. Good job.
Beck says she gives us a B+. So thanks, Beck.
Yeah, I thought that was really generous. So thanks, Beck. Appreciate that.
Because I'm being a little harsher on myself, especially when you start off by messing up the whole intro. So,
Yeah.
I kind of set the tone for it. Yeah.
Well,
okay. I was looking at you on the screen, and I'm looking at I was kind of scanning ahead a little bit, and I was like, whatever. So it's just one of the nights. Got to, pop it off. Be ready for the next game.
Yep, absolutely. So I'll rush home from work and watch that game and be ready to go.
All right, let's get out of here because it's a late night, and we'll let everybody go to sleep. See you, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Take care.